verses 1 through 23. Hear the voice of God. There was a relative of Naomi's husband, a man of great wealth of the family of Elimelech. His name was Boaz. So Ruth the Moabitess said to Naomi, "Please let me go to the field and glean heads of grain after him in whose sight I may find favor." And she said to her, "Go, my daughter." And she left, and she went and gleaned in the field after the reapers. And she happened to come to the part of the field belonging to Boaz, who was of the family of Elimelech. Now, behold, Boaz came from Bethlehem and said to the reapers, "The Lord be with you." And they answered him, "The Lord bless you." Then Boaz said to his servant who was in charge of the reapers, "Whose young woman is this?" So the servant who was in charge of the reapers answered and said, "It is the young Moabite woman who came back with Naomi from the country of Moab." And she said, "Please let me glean and gather after the reapers among the sheaves." So she came and has continued from morning until now, though she rested a little in the house. Then Boaz said to Ruth, "You will listen, my daughter, will you not? Do not go to glean in another field, nor go from here, but stay close by my young women. Let your eyes be on the field which they reap, and go after them. Have I not commanded the young men not to touch you? And when you are thirsty, go to the vessels and drink from what the young men have drawn." So she fell on her face and bowed down to the ground and said to him, "Why have I found favor in your eyes, that you should take notice of me, since I am a foreigner?" And Boaz answered and said to her, "It has been fully reported to me all that you have done for your mother-in-law since the death of your husband, and how you have left your father and your mother in the land of your birth, and have come to a people whom you did not know before. The Lord repay your work, and a full reward be given to you by the Lord God of Israel, under whose wings you have come for refuge." Then she said, "Let me find favor in your sight, my Lord, for you have comforted me, and you have spoken kindly to your maidservant, though I am not like one of your maidservants." Now Boaz said to her at mealtime, "Come here, and I will eat of the bread, and dip your piece of bread in the vinegar." So she sat beside the reapers, and he passed parched grain to her, and she ate and was satisfied and kept some back. And when she rose up to glean, Boaz commanded his young men, saying, "Let her glean even among the sheaves, and do not reproach her. Also let grain from the bundles fall purposefully for her. Leave it, that she may glean, and do not rebuke her." So she gleaned in the field until evening, and beat out what she had gleaned, and it was about an ephah of barley. Then she took it up and went into the city, and her mother-in-law saw what she had gleaned. So she brought out and gave to her what she had kept back after she had been satisfied. And her mother-in-law said to her, "Where have you gleaned today? And where did you work? Blessed be the one who took notice of you." So she told her mother-in-law with whom she had worked, and said, "The man's name with whom I worked today is Boaz." And Naomi said to her daughter-in-law, "Blessed be he of the Lord, who has not forsaken his kindness to the living and the dead." And Naomi said to her, "This man is a relation of ours, one of our close relatives." Ruth the Moabitess said, "He also said to me, 'You shall stay close by my young men until they've finished all my harvest.' And Naomi said to Ruth her daughter-in-law, 'It is good, my daughter, that you go out with his young women, and that people do not meet you in any other field.' So she stayed close by the young women of Boaz to glean until the end of barley harvest and wheat harvest, and she dwelt with her mother-in-law." This is the inspired and inerrant word of God. May he bless its eternal truths to our souls. You may be seated, and the children up through third grade are dismissed to their classes. In the last 2 weeks, we have seen in chapter 1 the beginning of a story of the frowning providence of God, and the importance of turning toward him, even in the midst of the dark cloud. And that's where we left them last week. There was a little moment of hope at the end of chapter 1. It said when they were there, they had arrived in Bethlehem at the beginning of the barley harvest, which means we know that there's food around if they're able to find it. And so there's a little spark, but that's more for the reader than it is for Ruth and for Naomi. consider them in this moment, it's still very low. They don't have anything. They don't have food. They don't have someone to provide. They don't have any harvest personally. They've moved from a man of, being with Elimelech, a man of a prominent man, to now being essentially not even a servant, not having anything whatsoever. And so, as I was thinking through that this week, and in chapter 2, we begin, even in verse 1, with this ray of hope that sort of shines through. Once again, it's more for us than it is for Ruth and for Naomi. But for the reader, we see, something good is about to happen. It reminded me of the psalmist in Psalm 30, when he says that his anger, even speaking of the frowning providence of God, the evil, which is not a moral evil from God's hand, but simply a great darkness, something that is difficult. His anger is but for a moment. His favor is for a lifetime. Weeping may last for the night, but a shout of joy comes in the morning. And that's really what we see in this story. Now, there are different amounts of time that we suffer in the shadow of darkness, and there are different amounts of time that we rejoice with a shout in the morning, but this is the pattern of those who have turned to Yahweh for refuge, those who have hidden under the shadow of his wings. Sorrow, darkness, frowning providence don't have the last word, not for any of us. Sometimes we experience the bright moments in life, and sometimes it seems that the only bright moment that may occur is the final moment where we transfer from this life to the next, and all of darkness is gone, and every shadow is past. But sorrow will not last. Light does pierce through the frowning cloud. So there are a variety, perhaps, of propositional statements we might make this morning. There are different points of application into which we could lean. But based on the structure of chapter 2, we'll say this. People of grace, take shelter under the wings of Yahweh. Take shelter under the wings of Yahweh. Do as Ruth has done. And there are a few reasons for that in the text. His providence is far-reaching. Providence of God is far-reaching. And his blessing is overwhelming. It is a good inheritance that he gives to those who are under his wings. So let's walk through this story and see these things take place. Sort of see how the timing goes here, but we just get to enjoy and reflect and make sure that we're sort of thinking carefully about the flow of the story as it's intended to be heard. So chapter 2, verse 1, this is Act 2. The chapters here are very nicely divided in sort of narratival pieces. So this is Act 2, Scene 1, you might say. And it is Ruth's plan. Well, before Ruth even speaks, we get a word. The narrator speaks to us a little bit, gives us a piece of information, even one that doesn't belong to Ruth, and that is this, that there is a relative of Naomi's husband, a man of great wealth of the family of Elimelech. Now, the man of great wealth is the Ish. Remember we had in Proverbs 31 the Isha, the woman. So we have now the man, Ish, Chayil, the man of virtue, the noble man, the man who is valiant, the mighty warrior. And so we have the male version of Proverbs 31 announced, and it's not just that he is this in a Gabor sense. So this is the word for like David's mighty men. It certainly is referring in part at least to his wealth. I don't love the translation, a man of great wealth, because that's not really what either the greatness or the wealth are after. He's a man of mighty virtue. That's what we're supposed to hear. You're like, the one who probably will bring great hope to the story, the man who fears the Lord, the man who walks in the ways of Yahweh. He exists in Bethlehem, and significantly, though we haven't walked through the cultural aspects of it yet, he's a relative. He's of the clan of Elimelech, which, if we know Israel's customs, will raise hope in the reader. So we know something that Ruth maybe doesn't know, and that is that there is a man with a great field who is mighty in virtue that's related to her. That's incredible. And it's a setup for what's about to happen. So then Ruth hatches an idea. She's already practicing her vow. She's living it out, right? She's sworn herself and her life and her strength to Naomi. And so our young, valiant maiden is bravely fulfilling her vow. In verse 2, please, Naomi, let me go to the field and glean heads of grain after him in whose sight I may find favor. She's not talking explicitly about Boaz. She's just saying that hopefully I'll find somebody that is nice to me. And remember her position. She is hungry, she's tired, and according to Naomi, she's empty, right? They have nothing. Now there's this cultural reality in Israel that is based in God's command to his people that helps set the stage for what Ruth's idea is. And that is this concept of gleaning. So in Leviticus 19, you'd read that when Israel reaps the harvest of their land, they should not wholly reap the corners of their field, nor should you gather all of the gleanings, picking up all the pieces of your harvest. And you shall not glean your vineyard, nor shall you gather every grape of your vineyard. You shall leave them for the poor and the stranger. I am Yahweh your God. So it's a command in Leviticus. Deuteronomy sheds a little bit more light on the idea, the reason why. So in Deuteronomy, once again, when you reap your harvest in your field and you forget even a sheaf, a collected bundle in the field, you shouldn't go back to get it. Just leave it. It shall be for the stranger, for the fatherless, and the widow, that the Lord your God may bless you in all the work of your hands. This is his intention. This is his design, similar with the vineyard. And then at the end of Deuteronomy 24, in verse 22, the reason is exposed. It says, the reason is that you would remember that you were a slave in Egypt. Therefore, I command you to do this thing. They've been there. They know what it's like to be oppressed. They know what it's like to have nothing. And lest generation after generation pass and they forget, this is one way for you to remember and one way for you to do what Egypt did not do. And that is provide for the poor and the afflicted and the fatherless in your land. So that now is the reduced position to which Naomi and Ruth find themselves. They are the poor, the fatherless, the widow, the nobody in Israel. And because Ruth is there with her, the stranger. She's the Moabite. She needs grace. She needs the smile of someone, favor from someone. This is not only difficult for them because they're hungry, but remember the setting of the book of Ruth. We're in the book of Judges, aren't we? What are people doing in Judges? Well, worshiping the Lord with their whole heart, right? No. They are doing that which is right in their own eyes. It is a vicious and immoral place. It is not a place that is kind to a widowed Moabitess in the land. So for her to go out on her own into the field behind the men to work is a very dangerous thing for her to do. She is being brave in fulfilling her vow to Naomi. And so that's the setup. This is what she does. She says, I know we need food. I know we need favor. Let me go. Let me go and seek to find it. And Naomi says, go, my daughter. And verse 3, we're early in the text, but it's one of the most beautiful and the most theologically relevant verses for the entirety of the chapter. So we're a little bit front heavy this morning. But then she leaves, she went, she gleaned in the field after the reapers, and it doesn't quite come across in many translations. But when it says, and she happened to come to the part of the field belonging to Boaz, It's saying, like, and she randomly found Boaz's field. Amazingly, sheer luck struck Ruth. Just absolute dumb, whoa. It just so happened that this so happened. It's like redundant even in Hebrew. And we're supposed to be reading this right from, these are the people of Yahweh. So it's supposed to sort of strike you, like when even, one of the brothers or sisters is like, and just by sheer luck, I this. And you're thinking, I know what you mean. It's not luck. So remember this theme of the providence of God, which is the way in which he works out his sovereignty to care for his creation, namely humanity, namely his covenant people, which is Ruth. And even amongst these covenant people, the poor, the afflicted, the ones who are the widowed, the fatherless. And so here's like a prime candidate for the providence of God. And what does he do? He gives her the best and the biggest gift he could have given her. He led her to a needle in a haystack, 1 in a million chance of landing in this field. And yet he guides her. Yahweh establishes Ruth's steps, and he establishes yours. Where you go in life, what happens in life, the things taking place at home, the things taking place at work, from the big things to the little things, God is guiding you. Rest in his providence. So just this 1 in a million chance here. Ruth finds Boaz's field, the mighty man of value, the mighty virtuous one who's related to her. She doesn't even know it yet. So, scene 2 is what happens at the field of Boaz. That's the biggest piece of the chapter from verse 4 all the way down to verse 17. There's a couple snippets here. First, Boaz interacts with his workers. And so he arrives on the scene, and it says in verse 4, behold, like, whoa, he enters. The mighty man of virtue has now come to his property. He left the city just like Ruth had left the city. He's a little bit behind her. She's been on his property for some time. He arrives, and he says to his workers, the Lord be with you. And they all reply, the Lord bless you. And the first thing out of Boaz's mouth is the name of God. Sort of setting the tone for what we can expect from him. What we could expect to have happen on his property, right? My house, my rules. Yahweh bless you guys. Thank you for working today. Let's work with diligence. Let's work with honesty, with integrity. Let's be kind to one another. And so he just speaks the name of the Lord, and they all chorus back to him. And then he notices immediately someone who is poor and in need of assistance, someone who's maybe waiting by the wayside, someone who is on the fringe. And he asks his little manager here, a young manager, he says, who's this? What's she doing here? And this is very difficult. This is probably the most difficult portion of Hebrew in all of Ruth. Pretty enigmatic as far as what the manager is exactly talking about, which could be intentional depending on depending on how you lean interpretively. So let's just walk through this a little bit. We don't know what exactly Ruth has requested. We don't know exactly how the manager's responding or what his attitude is. And we don't know exactly the details of Ruth's work that morning. So this is verse 7. I missed 6, what he says in 6. He identifies her as the stranger, which comes across as maybe a little bit strong. He's like, yeah, she's the girl not from here. Like, she's the Moabite. She's the cursed one. Came back with Naomi. And Boaz already knows exactly who he's talking about because he's heard about her in the town. But then verse 7 is the difficult part. He says, well, she told me, she made this request, please let me glean and gather after the reapers among the sheaves. And then she's been here, and something about continuing in the morning till now, and then something about maybe a little about the house. It's really quite difficult. You kind of have to interpret it when you translate it. And so we could be saying that Ruth just arrived and said, do you mind if I join the nobodies in your field? That's sort of the easy side of things. Or, look at this, please let me glean and gather after the reapers among the sheaves. It sounds like she's asking for a lot. Not just, hey, can I stay on the edge of your property and pick up a few things? She's asking to follow right behind the guys in the middle of the sheaves and to gather it, which is what they're doing. They're gathering. So it may be that she kind of comes with a bold request because she needs help badly. We don't even have food for today. We have nothing. I need, give me as much as you can. Like when somebody maybe makes a request of you that is destitute, and you're like, and they ask for something big. You're like, whoa, I don't know if I could do that, but I could do this. And you're like, well, okay, I guess I'll take that. She may be asking for something pretty significant that strikes the manager, and he says, no, I don't know who you are. I don't know where you're coming from. I don't know what's going on. Boaz isn't even here yet. I'm in charge, but I'm young. And I think he's sort of a foil for Boaz, this older, wise man who knows exactly what to do. The young manager's like, I maybe shouldn't even be in charge. Why don't you wait here? So what she's requesting is a little enigmatic. Could just be something very normal. Could be something a little bit aggressive. And then what he tells her to do is also in question. Either Ruth's been working that morning or she hasn't. You can go either way. I lean towards the fact that she hasn't been working, that he actually had her sit and wait. And he says, because Boaz gets there and there's a lady just standing there, waiting. Like when the manager shows up and there's somebody outside his office. Well, why are they here? Well, they were waiting for you because I don't know what to do. I think it's like that. And she's been waiting. He says, she's been waiting all morning. And maybe she spent a little time in the house, or maybe she had little interest in the house, one of the two. She's just standing in the sun. Or she took a little break inside. We don't exactly know what he's after. But I think she's waiting. We're waiting for the man. We're waiting for the mighty, virtuous one to arrive to see what he does. What will he say to her? Perhaps even this sort of uncertain Hebrew makes it sound like the young man is just stuttering. What are you doing? Who's this girl? Where are we going? He's like, well, it was a little house and the time, and I don't really know what to do. You do what you think we should do. That kind of a thing. It's a possibility. And so Boaz, what does he do? Jumps right into action. He's like, hey, I know what to do. Let me talk to her. You listen, my daughter, will you not? And here we begin the conversation, the interaction between the mighty, valiant man and this valiant woman. It says, listen, will you not? Don't go glean in another field, verse 8, nor go from here, but stay close by, my young woman. Let your eyes be on the field which they reap and go after them. I've commanded the young men not to touch you, and when you're thirsty, go to the vessels and drink from what the young men have drawn. Whoa, more than she could have ever imagined. He's generous after generous after generous, right? He just says, don't go anywhere else. Here's your home. Every day, come be with me. No more fields have anything for you. My field has everything that you need. You can even be one of my workers, essentially. He's saying, go participate with the young women. These are my servants, and you're one of them. Consider yourself that way. I've told all the guys, they're not to mess with you at all. There's no harassment. There's no making fun of who you are or where you're from. There's no laying a finger on you. He's like, if they do, they'll have me to answer to, and trust me, they don't want to mess with the righteous man of God. And so he sets everything up for her just very liberally. He even says, hey, all of the water that's already been drawn, all the stuff that I provide for my workers, it's provided for you too. You can go by the green room, or you can go by the concession table. It's all for you. Great. So she has everything that she needs. Now she just kind of has to work. And she is overwhelmed. She falls down. She falls down. It looks like an act of worship even. It's just like, whoa, boom, she hits the floor. You've given me everything. Why have I found such favor? The very thing she was looking for. Same word. It's like this idea of grace. This something she did not deserve. Why have I found such favor in your eyes? Why'd you even look at me? I'm a foreigner. I shouldn't be here. And this piece is the most important piece in the narrative, 11 and 12. So we have really the providence of God in verse 3, and then the provision of God, the blessing of Yahweh in verses 11 and 12, by means of a righteous man. So Boaz says, I know everything about you. It's been fully reported to me. I know that you recently refused release from Naomi. I know that you chose to come and to be a part of a people that you don't know, in a land that you've never been, with a God that is new to you. Reading a little between the lines here, and I admire that. I think that's beautiful. You made the right choice, and God's led you to the right field. This is the land of Yahweh, inhabited by the people of Yahweh. You remind me of Abraham. You remind me of the one who left his land and he left his family for an unknown world. Yahweh said, in fact, that he would bless those who blessed Abraham. And he also said that whoever is generous to the poor lends to Yahweh, and he will repay. And here you are, being a daughter, or blessing a daughter of Abraham, right? Blessing Naomi, serving the poor, serving the widow, my poor relative. And so I bless you in the name and for the sake of Yahweh. I will be his wings for you. I will provide for you. And in verse 12, I may have blessed you in part, but may Yahweh bless you fully. May you have an entire heaping inheritance to compensate you for your virtue and for your love that you've expressed to his people. Indeed, my Moabite maid, the God of Abraham and Isaac and Israel, bless you. You've chosen well to take shelter under his wings. He is sweet and strong. He is able to nourish and raise and protect his own. That's the heart of verses 11 and 12. And he calls upon the name of the Lord to complete that which he himself has begun. I see virtue, I reward virtue. He says God does the same thing. We'll come back to that at the end. But Ruth's reaction is genuine once again. She says, this is amazing. I don't understand this. This is, like I said it this morning, but I didn't think it was going to happen. This is above and beyond all I could ask or think. God has provided for me. And she says, the grace that you've shown me, the third time favor is used in this chapter. The favor that you've shown me has provided two things for me. I am comforted. You've brought me great relief. To be honest, I wasn't sure if we were going to make it. But now I am sure. Now I know that all will be well in our circumstances. Because like a hungry, scared little chick, Ruth has run to Israel out of love for Naomi and love for Yahweh. And she's found security. Even in this moment, she's found security under the wings of God himself. Now embodied in the kindness of Boaz. So you've comforted me, and you spoke very kindly to me. You've spoken warmly, even though I don't belong here. Thank you. Thank you for seeing me, for noticing me, for being so generous. Even though I'm not an Israelite, like your maidservants. And so then there's a little bit later, the now insinuates that there's been a bit of time. So, I don't know, let's say she got there at 8, and it was 10 when Boaz showed up. And now it's noon. It's lunchtime. So Boaz says to her at mealtime, come, eat of the bread. Dip your piece of bread in the vinegar. This is, once again, overwhelmingly generous. Like he doesn't need to do any. None of this is written in the law. None of anything that he's done aside from the technicality of leaving some fringe pieces for the poor. That would be following the letter of the law. But Boaz is just exploding beyond that. And seeing it, getting it, clicking exactly with Yahweh's heart. And so he says, come to my table. to my table, to the table of the greatest man in Bethlehem? Okay? Sit by me. Come up here. Eat my bread. Even dip it in the juice, you know? And then he even serves her. He passes the parched grain to her. He's doing none of this is his stuff to do. None of this is his job. But he continues, eat well. Here, take some more. And then just a little note about Ruth, her wisdom. She eats until she's satisfied, and then she keeps some back. Just to make a quick connection, Proverbs 23, the first 8 verses describe this reality. It says, when you sit down to eat with a ruler, consider carefully what is before you. Put a knife to your throat. If you're someone given to appetite, don't desire his delicacies for their deceptive food. And he goes on verse 6, don't eat the bread of a miser nor desire his delicacies, for as he thinks in his heart, so he is. Eat and drink, he says to you, but his heart is not with you. The morsel you have eaten, you will vomit up and waste your pleasant words. So it's this idea of when you're at a table that you're not used to being at, when it's too good to be true, be careful, be slow. Don't be the one like diving in, feasting. For 2 reasons. 1, you sort of look the fool. And 2, the rich man's normally up to something. He'll have you pay him back. It's not really free food. So 2 things are present from wisdom literature in this text. 1, Ruth is wise. Look at this. She just eats a bit. She's got to be hungry. She's been waiting all morning in the sun, or working all morning in the sun, either one. And so she just eats a little bit till she's content, and then she saves some. Why is she saving that? Saving it for Naomi. She's saving dinner for Naomi. Wow, that's grace. That's wisdom. And then, amazingly, this is rare that you would have a rich man who is generously sharing, and it's real. It's true. He just wants to give it to her. There's no strings attached. So they share lunch together, and then who's the first to get back up? Ruth. Well, thank you. That was really nice. I'm going to go back to the field if that's okay. She stands up to glean, and Boaz is like, yep, okay, boys, young men. Now remember, when you go out there and Ruth is gleaning, we're going to be really generous. Let her glean, even among the sheaves, the stuff that you're gathering. If she comes and picks from it, that's great. You know what? Drop some extra off. I want her to have a lot of barley by the end of the day. And don't rebuke her. It's like, you can't just do the right thing with an awful attitude. You can't just do the right thing but say nasty things to her. He says, no, you don't make her feel bad. Make her feel good about it somehow. It's an accident. You didn't mean to do it, right? And she's helping you out. Thanks for picking that up for me. Why don't you keep it? It's like, do something to make her feel at home here. This field is her place of provision. And so she did. Verse 17, industrious, strong, and hardworking Ruth is out in the field until nighttime. And then when she's done, she takes it to the threshing floor. She beats what she has gleaned so that she is down just to reduced barley. She's ready to take that home. It says that she has an ephah of barley. It's not worth getting into the way in which we make all these transfers, but it's between 30 and 50 pounds of barley. She is loaded. She's got a haul. And she's got to walk back to town too. So I don't know. I mean, guys in the gym, that 45-pound plate. Let's take that back home. Take it back to the city. It's not nothing. I'm not saying it's that much, but it's not nothing. And so she's carrying this on her back all the way home. And then when she's getting back home, she takes it, to the city. So we're in our final scene. We moved away from the field of Boaz. And her mother-in-law sees what she's gleaned. And then she sees that she also brought leftovers. Somehow she remembered that, and it's not smashed to bits. So she has food for her and food to be. And her mother-in-law, Naomi's like, whoa, where have you been? Whose field did you stop by? This is amazing. And so she responds, Well, it was Boaz. That's his name. That's where all this barley came from. Even when Naomi replies at the end of verse 19, she speaks blessing to the one who noticed you. She's like, you can almost hear her maybe tease her. Not that she's thinking romantically necessarily, but somebody likes you. Like you. That's a lot. Yeah, his name is Boaz. Whoa, blessed be the Lord, who's not forsaken his kindness to the living and the dead. I know Boaz. That's Elimelech's brother, cousin, nephew, uncle. I don't know. Somebody. He's Elimelech's relative. I remember him. I know him. Wow, you landed on the right field. Yahweh has been kind to us today. And may he be blessed. Now, I referenced this verse last week in the building faith of Naomi, even insinuating that we're talking about Yahweh's kindness, maybe doubting that he was kind in verse 8. But after a closer look, I think the nearest antecedent of his kindness is actually Boaz, probably more than the Lord, though in some way she's referencing both. But I think she's saying, blessed be Boaz by Yahweh, because Boaz didn't forsake his kindness to the living and to the dead. There's a few reasons for that I think leaning toward Boaz being the referent. One is that it matches really well what Naomi says in Ruth 1:8, and that is that now both Ruth and Boaz have been very kind to Naomi. They've both cared for her in her distress. They've both honored her husband and her sons, even after they've died. There's no other spot in the Old Testament that Yahweh is referencing as showing kindness to the dead. It's more of a human thing, at least in the Old Testament. So those are a few reasons. And then she also speaks of Boaz right before and right afterward, right? Blessed be the one who's not forsaken his kindness, and then this man is a relation of ours, one of our close relatives. So I think she's talking about Boaz. But what she's saying is that Boaz has demonstrated the very grace of God to her and to Ruth. May God repay Boaz. You notice this sort of increasing now multiplication of spiritual fruits? All of these people blessing each other for their kindness in the Lord. Maybe outdoing one another in love and good works. You see that accumulation, just what's beginning to be, we're back in the land. God is good, and I'm seeing his faithfulness through his people. And they're being generous and kind and even protecting all of these things. Praise the Lord for his goodness to us through his people. And then she says at the end of verse 20, this man is a relation, same thing mentioned at the beginning of the chapter, and one of our close relatives. The word is the Redeemer. So that's a theme of Ruth, and one that we'll really dive into. We'll even hesitate a little bit next week on getting into, even though it's a rising theme. And then the following week, so in 2 weeks really, we'll dive fully into this idea of redemption, what it meant culturally and what it means to us theologically. But she's saying that there's hope. She's saying that there's grace. She's saying that there's a future, and that may even very well be through this individual. He's someone who can really, really help us, who could really save us, who could turn this around, to lift us from the pit. And then Ruth's like, yeah, he said that I could stay through the whole harvest. So it's not just today, it's not just a few weeks worth of food. By the end of the harvest, she'll have probably enough for the year, especially based on this day. We're going to be taken care of. And Naomi says, 22, this is good. It's good that you do it. Be brave. Rejoice in God. Carry on. He'll keep you safe. Boaz will keep you safe. It's better that you don't go to other fields and risk other misadventures. So just stay. This is wonderful. God, on day one, field one, God gave us everything and more. And so that's exactly what Ruth does. At the next chapter, we'll pick up closer to the end of the harvest. So now she's staying with the young women of Boaz to glean until the end of barley harvest and wheat harvest, and she dwelt with her mother-in-law. Now, we should note just at the end of this that while it's abundant, it's not permanent. And there is a distinction, right? Winning the lottery is still a one-time thing. The barley doesn't last for 10 years. It lasts for 1 year at the most. And so there is a sort of temporary abundance to chapter 2. Like, wow, we really landed it big, but if there's a way, like 3:1, Naomi says, shall I not seek security for you? Can we seek a sort of permanent solution to this? So chapter 3 leans into that idea more. So what do we do with this? Maybe two primary points of application. One, since we've just been talking about Boaz and reflecting on him, seeing all of his generosity, let's think that way for a moment. Observe his godliness. Observe the godliness of Boaz from start to finish. Chapter 1, verse 1, the Lord be with you all the way through the end of the chapter, and it only gets better next week. Boaz exemplifies, he's living out the very righteousness of God to those around him. He greets his employees in the name of Yahweh. He notices the nobodies. He takes action on their behalf, providing, protecting, offering food and water, welcoming rejects to his table, personally serving the lowly, insisting that those around him are treated with respect and are guarded and are safe in his presence. Look at this. This is magnificent. It's wonderful. A man living in the fear of the Lord. He's no legalist. He's not acting, being generous for her, ultimately for him. He's living with a heart that's been transformed by grace. He's been favored by God, and so he favors God's people. As we were reminded in Ephesians, right, godly people are guided by the law, but are driven, the wind in their sails is grace. See that Boaz is living that exactly. He's guided by the law. He knows what he's supposed to do as a landowner. He knows what he's supposed to do as someone who has his eyes out for the poor and the needy. And yet, what's his motivation? Oh, his motivation is definitely the spirit of the law, knowing God, living generously before his people. So he understands God's sort of intention, and he lives it out. It's much like when Jesus arrives on the scene and he begins teaching and preaching, and people are saying, we've never heard anything like this before. We haven't really seen this before. Jesus is teaching basically Boaz's life. Right? There have been people who have gotten it, who have seen it. Wait, don't just not murder, but don't be angry? Whoa, that's sort of beyond what we've heard before. Don't just leave like a portion of the field, but drop some on the ground and invite them to your table. Whoa, Jesus' teaching is wild. Jesus' teaching is advanced. Jesus is teaching something new. No, he's not. He's showing you what the law does when it's driven by grace, when it's driven by having been shown favor by God and simply echoing, like letting it ripple the same favor that you have seen. And so that's what we should do. If you are sort of taking notes or want to jot down a passage to look at this week, read Matthew 25, verses 31 through 46. Matthew 25, verses 31 through 46. And think about Boaz. He's doing it. He's living it. So that's something we should observe. People of grace, we should live out the spirit of the law motivated by the grace of God in the gospel. And then by observing Ruth, the wings of Yahweh truly are safe. Knowing God is safe. His providence knows no limits. It knows no bounds. There isn't a thing that he can't do. And his people are near. Boaz's are around. These are some of his instruments, some of his means by which he might administer his providence. So if you look at verse 12 and you think about the gospel and you think about Ruth's story, like she's being praised. Boaz is even saying Yahweh's indebted to you, which is a little bit weird. Like God repay you because you've been very generous. It's a little odd. You think about what's happened in Ruth's life. Think about where she was a year before this. She was a pagan, married to Sicko, can't remember which one, in a land far away, no hope, no future, destined for death. Yet what has happened? The frowning providence of God has brought her into his house. He's called the cursed. He's called the sinner. And then he has, in chapter 1, enlivened her turn, enlivened her repentance, enlivened her covenant, her agreement to exchange all of the gods of her past for the one true living God. And then, so he's made her righteous, yes? And then he blesses her for her righteousness. He says, I'm indebted to you for your righteousness. Wow, what a God we serve. That there's a reward for righteousness that's been imputed and sort of lived out. That's amazing. So consider the gospel in this text and rejoice in the fact that a full inheritance awaits as we have taken shelter under the wings of God. What a good and kind and strong and nurturing God that we serve. Let's pray.